This is CBC Here and Now.
Then I started to go underwater and I couldn't really breathe.
It's just standing on the edge of the rock and I just missed him.
Tonight, a warning about fast-moving water after an 8-year-old was swept down the Manuels River last week.
95% of our markets are literally gone overnight with this COVID.
Well, you at CBC love to have drama, and I think we were known to have a lot of drama.
The tide has changed. Two families who were fierce competitors are now teaming up.
Got a little bit of a heat wave happening this week. I'll tell you how long that sticks around.
Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. From fierce competitors to collaborators, two tour companies from Bay Bulls, O'Brien's and Gatheralls, are joining forces to survive the COVID-19 pandemic. And as Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports, the families have a long history.
Even with a possible Atlantic bubble in the works, few tourists will visit the province's shores this year. For tour operators in Bay Bulls, who normally see 40,000 visitors a season, 2020 looks bleak.
95% of our markets are literally gone overnight.
We were refunding back all the pre-bookings that people had.
Joe O'Brien and Mike Gatherall were once cutthroat competitors fighting to ferry tens of thousands of tourists to sea for whale and puffin tours.
Didn't really come to blows, I don't think. I mean, there's always been the checkered past.
And I think we were known to have a lot of drama. Some of my friends said I do anything for a story and that they think I'm doing this for a story, but actually I'm doing it for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and for the survival of our two companies.
Despite the family feud, both can agree the competition made them up their game, and with 35 years in the business, the pandemic gave the pair a new perspective: partner or perish.
You know, collectively, it's in our best interest to make an effort to open, to move forward.
We cooked a fish stew and then we decided to cook up a deal that would work for both companies.
The partners will now have a joint website. They'll use the O'Brien's boat, the Atlantic Puffin, but Gatherall's dock and building facilities. They'll also take turns staffing the boat weekly. They'll also be sharing the risk, but also the reward.
The cost of opening up, putting boats in the water, doing inspections, doing certifications, these are all costs that people don't recognize that are there. And
it'd be like throwing away good money, and we needed to protect our business and protect our employees.
Even as partners, the pair can't resist a friendly jab.
And you'll probably even see me teach the Gatherall boys how to sing an Irish song.
Tours start in just over a week on July 1st. The tour companies are asking anyone who hops aboard to maintain social distancing and respect other people's boundaries. Heather Gillis, CBC News, Bay Bulls.
Well, if you don't have a family doctor, this next story may offer a solution. Eastern Health is starting a new service. It's a clinic staffed by a team of healthcare providers and aims to reduce pressure in emergency rooms while giving more people access to healthcare. Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports.
Eastern Health's collaborative teen clinic will be here in this square in St. John's. The province says it's a solution to a problem for some of the thousands of people without a family doctor in Newfoundland and Labrador.
This was really, in a sense, triggered by a series of retirements last year where particularly one practice, all the physicians left within a matter of a month or so of each other. And there was a gap, primary care, what you might call orphan patients.
Last year, the Newfoundland and Labrador Medical Association said 1 in 5 people in this province don't have a family doctor. It also said the province needs to recruit about 60 more family physicians. Haggie says the new clinic means some of those so-called orphan patients will get health care without seeing a doctor.
They would be screened by an RN and then an appropriate direction given to put them with either a nurse practitioner or a family physician. That's the standard now for primary health care teams.
Haggie says primary health care teams that include nurses and doctors are the way of the future. Eastern Health expects the clinic will see about 25 to 30 patients per evening. The health authority says more than 400 people have called to register with the new clinic. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Another day with 0 active cases of COVID-19 in the province. That makes it 25 days straight with no new cases. On Friday, an asymptomatic employee at Eastern Health did test positive. Contact tracing is done and all the test results are negative. The employee has tested negative on 2 occasions and can return to work. The department says it's possible for the test to pick up traces of the dead virus. Well, there's a court fight brewing about unpaid taxes in Gander. This comes after the town council filed a statement of claim earlier this month. The town is suing a company that previously ran the restaurant, bar, and duty-free shop at the airport there. They're suing for over $771,000 in unpaid taxes. Weston's ran concessions at the airport for over a decade until losing the contract in 2019. The company has permanently ceased operations. A warning tonight from a St. John's mother who had a close call with her son on the Manuels River earlier this month. Her 8-year-old was swept downstream by the strong current, but luckily was rescued by someone who was in the right place at the right time. Cease-Hare reports.
Ellie and her 8-year-old son Frankie are relaxed today, tossing rocks, but it was a different scene on June 5th. It was a hot, sunny Friday afternoon, and they were cooling off, wading in knee-deep water near the gazebo at Manuels River when it happened. She was out of the water drying off, watching him when the fast-moving water pulled Frankie downstream.
I ran along the water, and then he was 20 feet away from me.
Frankie recalls the very scary moment.
Then I started to go underwater, and I was trying to get out of the water, and I couldn't really breathe.
Gina says the unfamiliar river was shallow, but it was raging fast. She chased her son along the rocky shoreline. Neither knew about the rapids just beyond the bridge. Terrifying for her.
He was floating away from me, and his head was kind of going back and forth under the water.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't really breathe.
Yeah.
Darren Cullum was walking by with his daughters and jumped in the river under the bridge. He reached Frankie, grabbed him, and pulled him to safety. Gina Kelly says her son's hero was in the right place at the right time. Now she wants her frightening experience to be a reminder to parents to be careful around fast-moving rivers this time of year.
It's dangerous, you know, and I just would have felt really bad if the same thing happened to someone else and I hadn't recorded it or told anyone, you know, because you really need to be careful.
Kelly says, unfortunately, she underestimated the water that day. She's not from here, but she says her close call is a warning that places you think might be safe are not. Cease-Hare, CBC News, Conception Bay South.
Well, now to a story we brought you last week. Beekeepers in this province are divided when it comes to bringing in out-of-province honeybees. The province says with rigorous stipulations it is safe to import bees, but a West Coast beekeeper says it puts local healthy hives at risk of being exposed to a parasite that's destroying global bee populations. Here Now's Colleen Connors has more.
The province introduced new legislation last week, making it mandatory to register all beekeeping operations in the province as a way to protect our world-class bees from any parasites. But a beekeeper on the West Coast in the Codroy Valley says the only way to do that is to get rid of importation altogether. Megan Sams just started mating bees with a nearby colony.
Yeah, it is better to work with bees who are established in that area.
Sams agrees with registering and inspecting all colonies, but feels the only way to ensure the deadly varroa mite never arrives on our shores is to ban bees from outside the province.
And the only way they can be transported is on the backs of bees.
Karen Kennedy is the province's apiarist. She's passionate about bees.
Well, it's another world actually. When you open the colony, bees work in a fundamental way, and they work for a greater good.
She stick-handled the last honeybee importation in 2016 and says it's an expensive last resort.
It was an arduous process. We followed CFIA certification, permits were issued, inspections were conducted on site when the bees were put here in Newfoundland, every month thereafter, and then a year after that. So there's a quarantining process, inspection process, and then final documentation to state that the bees are still certified varroa and disease-free.
That's fine, but bees have such a span. They will forage 6 kilometers or more to gather nectar and pollen. And if they have developed a robbing tendency and there's honeybees anywhere within their radius and they enter another colony with varroa on their back or any other of those viruses, then that colony is totally open to whatever they might be carrying.
SAMS knows of close to 2,000 colonies in Alberta totally wiped out by the varroa mite. The parasite is decimating global bee populations.
You know, a lot of the viruses that come off of varroa, they're not even visible until they're embedded in the colony.
SAMS feels the government and Kennedy should focus more on breeding its rare and special disease-free stock instead of commercial importation.
So we are focusing on protecting the status, educating the public, educating beekeepers, and letting them know we have something that we want to protect.
That's something both bee enthusiasts can agree on. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Corner Brook's new fire truck has a lot of bells and whistles. This vehicle is one of a kind. It was custom made for the local department. Firefighters and residents gave their input. There's a 30-gallon foam system, a remote-controlled rooftop water gun, built-in rollover cab cage protection, and a stainless steel chassis to keep it from corroding during Newfoundland winters. The cost, just under $750,000.
This province is facing a financial, economic, and health crisis. How will the next premier lead us through it? Tune in Thursday night for a special edition of Here and Now. Watch Andrew Fury and John Abbott go head-to-head in a live debate. We want you to get involved. What questions do you have for the two Liberal leadership contenders? Email hereandnow.nl@cbc.ca and then tune in Thursday night.
Heat and humidity on tap for the next couple of days. That also comes with the risk of some thunderstorms for some areas. I'll have all the details coming up.
Another update is brought to you by the sold-out HCF Home Lottery. Thank you, Newfoundland and Labrador. Your support has been overwhelming. Prize winners will be announced on June 25th at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is here now with a look at the weather forecast. Not the warmest of days in St. John's today, but that wasn't the story for across the province today by any stretch.
No, absolutely not. We've got warm temperatures for the West Coast. Let's take a look at where we were sitting this afternoon. 28 degrees in Corner Brook. That warm, humid air making its appearance today. 26 in Deer Lake, and then you've got those temperatures in eastern areas, even along the south coast, much cooler into the teens. 16 degrees in St. John's, and with this wind, it's feeling a little chilly as well. 18 degrees Astoria up through Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and 24 in Lab City this afternoon. So we do have some lightning that was happening for the northern peninsula. It's just off the coast now. Southeastern Labrador, you're seeing some lightning as well. That risk of thunderstorms is going to continue over the next few hours, and even in Lab West and towards the interior, you're also looking at the potential for some thunderstorms, and that's thanks to that stationary front that's moving through this evening, and you can see that there with all that rain. Towards coastal Labrador, you're looking at the potential for some showers, and then along the south coast of the island, just pretty much hanging on to that potential for some drizzle and fog overnight tonight with some chilly temperatures as well. Overall, those winds will stay brisk. We're looking at anywhere from 20 to as much as 40 km/h gusts along the south coast. 11 degrees in St. John's overnight, but temperatures still staying quite mild. Corner Brook, 17 degrees is your overnight low, and 9 degrees for the Strait. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, you should sit around 12 degrees tonight, and again, that risk of thunderstorms in there for you. As we head through the day tomorrow, it's going to be another hot day. Unfortunately, going to hang on to the areas of cloud and drizzle and fog down along southern areas of Newfoundland. And then in the afternoon, because of that heat and humidity, there is a chance we could see some pop-up thunderstorms for the west coast towards central and the interior, as well as some pop-up showers possible for eastern areas of the island. Otherwise, a quiet but hot and humid day. Again, we'll see some showers move right back in for Labrador. So here's your temperatures, 20 to 29 degrees. Those winds will be generally out of the southwest, 20 to 40 km/h. Again, those cooler temperatures in that onshore flow along the south coast. Port aux Basques only reaching a high near 13 tomorrow, 19 in St. Anthony, and then temperatures should reach the 20-degree mark again for Lab City, 22, 20 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and those temperatures in the teens for coastal areas. But again, winds will stay generally light, 10 to as much as 20 km/h. Into Wednesday, we hang on to this heat and humidity, even climbing for eastern areas. So could see a high near 27 degrees for St. John's. Generally going to see less cloud cover. Should see plenty of sunshine. 24 for St. Anthony, and then unfortunately hanging on to the chance of showers. Going to be unsettled now up through Labrador. 18 degrees for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Now we are going to hang on to this heat for most of the week, and temperatures will start to cool down. Now just when that happens in St. John's and eastern Newfoundland is a little bit up for debate. Whether it happens Saturday or even Friday, we could see temperatures dipping, but it does look like it should be nice up until then. And then for areas of central Newfoundland, you're looking at temperatures again, 28, 29 degrees. By Friday, 26, and then it looks like that cool down will happen on Saturday, 14 degrees. Western Newfoundland, similar temperatures, 15 degrees by Saturday afternoon. If you're looking up through eastern Labrador, unfortunately going to hang on to the unsettled conditions pretty much right through the weekend, and as those temperatures dip back into those low teens. Same thing for western Labrador, generally gray skies, and about a high near 17 by the time Friday rolls around. Just wanted to share this great shot of the Codroy Valley flat calm. This photo was taken by Glenn Stokes. He shared that with us this weekend. Thank you so much for sending that photo in. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Great, that's a beautiful shot. Thank you, Ashley. And actually, a bit of a familiar name as well, Glenn Stokes. Full disclosure, that is my father's photo, so lovely pic, Dad.
The fact that he's still alive is a serious miracle of the Lord.
I was ripe for addiction. It just took hold of me, right? Just come to see what it's like up here for you guys. Make a few relatives, you know.
Right now, there's an extreme shortage of low-income housing. I had no place to go, so I had to go down to the cop station. I asked them to stay here tonight.
When they're not home, I'm worried about
time will change everything.
There's a lot of touchy subjects, you know, when it comes to, you know, people being settled into the community of Sisseton.
For Indigenous people, this is the reality, you know, across Canada. I'm not unique.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Jessie Thistle's memoir, From the Ashes, about hope and resilience as a Métis Cree man, has inspired countless readers. This spring, as part of Canada Reads and before the COVID-19 pandemic, Thistle visited Labrador to speak with people about his experiences and his book. Here's a look at that journey, the people he met along the way, and what the way forward looks like for him.
Our final panelist is a Juno Award-winning country artist. He's been inducted into the Nova Scotia Country Music Hall of Fame. George Canyon is here. Hi, George.
How are you?
What is the name of the book you chose?
The name is From the Ashes.
By?
Written by Jessie Thistle. Seriously, never before has a book had such a profound effect on me. To hear Jessie Thistle's story and what he went through as a young boy, right up through adulthood. The fact that he's still alive is a serious miracle of the Lord, and to hear his story just moved me beyond words.
Well, this morning's DJ for the day on Labrador Morning is a very, very special guest. We are so proud to welcome author Jessie Thistle to Labrador. Jessie's book, From the Ashes, is in the running for Canada Reads, and Jessie is in our studio this morning. Good morning again, Jessie.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, it's a big deal to be part of Canada Reads. How did you find out your memoir was in the running?
We got a call from my publicist, and she's like, make sure your phone lines are clear. And then a producer called from CBC. It changed my life. It has changed my life. I like to take the reader and just drop them in the water, kind of like throw them in the ocean and make them swim.
You are that uncle.
And I think by just showing life, right, how it is, that you can expose a lot of the violence of colonialism and the things that are happening in our country. There's a lot of good things. There are a lot of beautiful things in this country, too. I'm from northern Saskatchewan. The road allowance is around Debden. That's where my family's from. I was born in Prince Albert. And my parents, my mom comes from these people, the Métis Cree, who stood up against Canada, and we had everything stripped away from us after the 1885 Northwest Resistance, and my family on her side came to live on these strips of land called road allowances. They're public land that basically nobody wanted in the face of settlement. My dad is from Weston, Ontario. He was kind of an outlaw in Toronto or whatever, breaking the law, and he fled to escape the law, and he went as far away as he could from the law. Where it was the road allowances in northern Saskatchewan, and he met my mom, and they had kids. And so my mom and dad kind of were a doomed couple from the beginning. He had addiction issues, and he wasn't the kindest man to my mother, and no one was there to support them, and they had 3 young kids, my brother Josh, my brother Jerry, and me. By the time I was 3 years old, all this trauma that my family had on my mom's side it frayed all the edges of the cohesiveness of my family, and it fell apart. My dad took us, me and my brothers, to go out east with his family. He kept leaving us alone in the apartment, and one of the neighbors noticed what he was doing. He was going out looking for drugs and whatnot, and they took us into CAS. We went through the system for a little while, and then we ended up at my grandparents' house. When they raised us without any sense of ourselves and as Indigenous kids, you know. But it was clear to the other kids around me that I was Native, right? I grew to resent that side of me, and resentful of like why I was at my grandparents' house, and that led to some experimentation with drugs in my early teen years. And because I had all this competing trauma from my history and from what had happened, the way we transitioned into my grandparents' care and the loss of my mother and father at such an early age, I was ripe for addictions. It just took hold of me, right? And it cycled into serious addictions by the time I was 19, and my grandparents kicked me out, and I became essentially homeless after that.
Yeah, addictions, justice, and mental health is usually our 3 common factors.
Just come to see what it's like up here for you guys. Make a few relatives, you know, talk a little bit, you know.
Usually I'm down here, I have a sickness, I'll just go in for the morning, go in, spend a bit of time, and go out, smoke my jar, go out and go drinking.
Right now there's an extreme shortage of low-income housing. The wait lists for NLHC and Melville Native housing sometimes are lengthy, sometimes they're not, but the clients don't meet the units that are available, and that we have a lot of single males here right now. I think originally the plan was for it to be more short-term, but the clients are finding themselves here for a very long time, sometimes years.
they'd ask me, did you want to put yourself in a drunk tank for? And I'd say no, fuck that.
Yeah, that's where I would go.
I would never ever put myself in a drunk tank because
I did. Up in Ain.
I've been in jail 3 times. See?
I got locked out of my friend's place up there. I had no place to go, so I had to go down to the cop station. I asked them to stay there tonight.
Well, you get free sandwich in the morning. I don't know what they do here.
I tell you, go.
There's no free food in Maine.
You guys don't have housing first here?
We do have housing, but there's a waiting list.
Yeah.
Could be up to a year, maybe 5 years, or up to 10 years.
Wow.
But they looks at it, Muskrat Falls first. If you got a job, you got a place. Or if you're working on Boise Bay, you got a place. I even asked my family if I could come stay with them. They said the couch is too small for me to sleep on. So if I ever wins the lottery, I'm building myself a great big ass house and I'm getting the biggest couch and they come looking for me for a place to stay. I said, my couch is too big.
It's too big for you.
Yeah.
I don't like telling my story. I look at it as a bad reputation.
Yeah.
Other people might look at it that way too.
Oh yeah.
Then your whole community is saying, well, this guy is not really a good guy, and another community or other people out there are going to say, well, if he did that, what else is he going to do? He might not change. Well, look at the situations he's in. But then again, it's not what happened. Everyone can change.
That's right.
The time will change everything.
You know, I robbed a store. That's how I got off the streets, and I used the justice system as a way to re-educate myself. And not the best way. I don't advocate for that, but it worked for me. You know. And
we have similar stories.
Yeah. It's common actually. And that's what I wrote about in my book. Like the publisher was like, "Oh my God, this is so dramatic." I'm like, for Indigenous people, this is the reality. You know, across Canada. I'm not unique. Got desperate. I got a serious infection in my leg, and I thought I could use the justice system by robbing a store as a safe place to transition into education. And I don't know if it was conscious, it was just something that I did. And when I went in, I started to see that there were opportunities within the justice system, like getting my teeth fixed. I could get like education, I could do my GED, I could get sober for a period of time. And so as that was happening, I was just picking up all the positive things that came from the justice system. And I was lucky enough to get sentenced to a treatment center in Ottawa. And while I was in Ottawa, I finished my GED, I took etiquette courses, and I just built on things, you know. And as I was going, I met a wonderful woman, Lucy, who's my wife now. And I'm a professor of Métis Studies at the Department of Equity Studies at York University. I'm a Trudeau Vanier Scholar, a Governor General medalist, and what I teach is Métis Studies from 1885 through the road allowance history of the 19th century. What happened to me is a story of colonization. The way that things were stripped away, the way that our lands were lost, our language was taken away, our culture was destroyed. Forcefully, right? To get people off the land so that the government or whatever could get the resources. And so, of course, it replicates. And I see it in places like Shishishi, I see it in Saskatoon, I see it in Vancouver. Every time I talk.
was actually my dad that had first taught us three how to steal, and then it became part of my DNA almost, like I learned to steal. I'm still a really good thief, I just don't do it anymore. So check your wallets, yeah.
Somebody gave me your book and I couldn't put it down. Like, I was just so amazed, like, this guy should be dead now. Like, and then I'd read again, and then I was like the stuff that was happening to you, I was just like, I don't know, it's scary, and then it opens your eyes, and and I found it really sad, like, and heartbreaking. But then, and I was waiting for waiting for something good to happen. So, and then you went to treatment, then you relapsed again, and then I was mad at you.
So how many years have you been quitting now?
12.
12?
Yeah.
Do you still feel like you still want to be doing it?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Every day.
My kids and my grandchildren, they're adults now, right? And when they're not home, I'm worried about them. I can't sleep. I gotta phone somebody if they're there or something. And sometimes they come, the ones that they're drinking, they come home 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still up waiting for them. He's now 40 years old, and I'm still worried.
He said, because you lived in the city and that you weren't connected to your land and your culture, he said, if you had been connected to your culture, then you probably wouldn't have been introduced to these drugs, street drugs, and having lose your culture in that. And he said, when we go back to the land to get healing, so that's what he was talking about. If you had spent time with your parents out on the land, or your grandparents out on the land, and then things might have been different, he said.
Look at like intergenerational trauma in our families, and I see things like addiction and even diabetes is like comes from that. It stems to the way that so much was taken from Indigenous peoples over time. Loss of connection to land, loss of our traditional diet led to things like diabetes, loss of our worldview.
We lost everything. I dare say that we lost everything. Our community, the government took everything for us, like Muskrat Falls. They destroyed everything.
The primary addiction right now is the cocaine. Cocaine has raised a lot of concerns in the community, and there's a lot of dealers out there that are selling, and there's younger kids that do it now. It's easy to get around here, and there's a lot of people who sells it, and there's a lot of people that has more money, there's more vehicles, easy transportation to go to Goose Bay, and I'm not using Goose Bay as a bad place, but that's where it's coming from. Where else would they get it? Before cocaine, the big issue was alcohol at first. There's a lot of touchy subjects, when it comes to history with people to coming nomadic into being settled into the community of Sisseton. We'll start from the elders, because and colonization, right? So it starts from our grandparents, when our grandparents, it's like a little chain reaction. So our great-grandparents were introduced, they were settled here in the community, and they were introduced with alcohol. A lot of grandparents were drinking, and they had fun, drink, and get drunk. Having fun and drinking and getting drunk, came with consequences. A lot of kids were abused. Some of the kids died in a house fire. And there's still older people that, come around, and drink and still talk about their, when they were in residential school, when they were being abused. and but we try to, we're there to help them as well, I know some people just drink and just couch surf and do whatever they want, and they're at the same time they're battling the, with their own issues, alcohol and drug issues, their addictions. I know there's homelessness. There's 3 or 4 families in one household, and people that don't have a house, couch surf, with their aunts or their uncles or their sisters, and people who have new houses, they would try to invite their family members and keep them for a while and just make sure everybody's okay. I feel like this is like it's slowly dying off, like the chain reaction is being cut off, and the new generation, like us, like me, I'm 28 years old, and I was using drugs, I was drinking, and I was couch surfing, intergenerational trauma played my part as well, and listening to my mom and my dad, they were drinking before. I don't have a problem talking about that, but it is what it is, and I can't do nothing about it but to, I have children of my own that, I want to make sure that they're okay. I don't want them to see what I seen when I was a kid.
So hello, my name is David Hodges. I'm the co-executive director of Newfoundland, which is a James Bay Cree word meaning we live here. The organization was established in 2015 to weave creative networks of support for Indigenous youth.
Do you see it's hard when there's nothing to do? People drown in the dark, so I'm running to you.
We offer several customizable programs that seek to collaborate with Indigenous communities to fulfill the immediate need for a spark or a change of narrative through the arts. But then we also look at how we can build sustainable programs locally by building out strategies and working with communities to support local development, self-determination, and autonomy, so that these programs can sustain themselves without our organization.
We are strong and we are proud. We're the future singing Hear our voices, hear the sound.
Art is a great access point to really have discussions about all of the different aspects and potential that a young person has, all the different seeds. It's not just like, because you're good at making music that you'll necessarily pursue a life of music, but it's like a plant. It plants a seed of wonder.
I won't fake the blackness. My goal in life is that I'll grow and fight for my dreams. I'll hold them tight.
I'm the man, the new one. This life is hard. Teach the guys the way you. Let's see the stars. Not to washes. We live on this beautiful land. We're united, we stand. Oh, we are strong and we are proud. We're the future singing Hear our voices, hear the sound.
I believe that what's happened is that there's been a fundamental breakdown of relations in Indigenous societies across the country, and that's due to colonization. So relationship with language, relationship with kin, relationship with land and the natural world, relationship with the government, right? The Crown, First Nations relations, that's broken. And if you look at it through the lens of where my people are from, we're Michif and Neheo or Cree, we have a worldview called Wakutawin, helping each other in a good way, where we're supposed to act as interconnected relatives. And those relationships can be repaired through this worldview. We're supposed to treat each other as relatives, everything in relation. So the lake, the land, the people, the government, ourselves, and with Creator. We're supposed to be in harmony with all of these different relationships. And if we worked toward a solution to rebuilding kin and culture, to rebuilding our relationship with the land, to rebuilding and refortifying our relationship with the Crown, because that did once exist before. We were acting as relatives, and then somewhere along the way, Canada went one way and just started to do whatever it pleased. And so within this understanding of Wekutuan, I believe that we can repair, we can recover language, we can restore relations between settlers and First Nations or Indigenous or whatever you want to call it. And then we'll see a real revitalization of language. Our kin structures will be kept together because we'll have the housing to keep First Nations children within their homes, and and just things would repair naturally if we poured the resources where they deserve to be. And that's tied to sharing resources and being good relatives.
We are strong and we are proud. We're the future singing Inoni Kamu. Hear our voices, hear the sound. Ino Wasses, Ino Inuit. We love our land, Ino Etu.
Some great perspectives there. Special thanks to video producer Mark Cumby for creating that documentary. Of course, you can re-watch and share that story. It lives on our website, cbc.ca/nl. Well, police in this country are under fire after recent altercations between officers and Indigenous people that have ended in violence or death. Yesterday was National Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada. Aaron Broman tells us how concerns about police cast a shadow on celebrations.
They walk in a circle to try to move forward and away from the rampant drug use in Broken Head, Ojibwe Nation.
I think it's important for our community to all get involved and support each other because our families are suffering.
Drug use puts them on the wrong side of the law, and that can be a dangerous place for Indigenous people. On Friday, a much larger rally in Winnipeg for Aisha Hudson. The 16-year-old, allegedly involved in an armed robbery and high-speed police chase in a stolen car, was fatally shot by Winnipeg police in April. Her grandfather now calling for more scrutiny when police take a life.
I pray for her, almost every day. I miss her so much.
His call for accountability was backed by many.
We have to keep rising. We have to keep gathering until we see real justice, until we see lives saved.
In Saskatchewan on Saturday, a group demanded justice for Indigenous people killed by police. Jordan LaFond died after his stolen truck crashed outside of Saskatoon in 2016. He was kneed in the head by police, handcuffed, and later died. His mother hasn't given up the fight.
Saskatchewan, because there is no independent oversight, there's no civilian body to investigate the police when there is serious injury or death.
Celebrations are online across the country, featuring Indigenous dance, music, storytelling, and culture. This former Indigenous leader says the culture is there to be shared. The context adds intensity.
It seems like it's more heightened and even more important for all of us to reflect on what Indigenous people are to Canada.
She said it's time to look together at our country's systems so change and healing can prevail. Aaron Broman, CBC News, Winnipeg.
being a big guy or having facial hair, it's just hair. Like, it just grows. There's no reflection of the person you are based on your facial hair.
Someone said it's the beard that's on the inside that counts.
It's about just showing people as people, put on a tail, like, now you're a merbai.
It's not just about men in tails, it's about pretty much anybody in tails, and that's kind of the beauty of mervais.
I want people in different ways to see men being depicted in ways that they're not used to seeing them.
There will be some people who are maybe challenged by what they're seeing. But first and foremost, we're all gorgeous.
Welcome back. Canada will not release Chinese Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou to gain the freedom of 2 Canadians detained in China. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau bluntly rejected the idea of a detainee swap today.
No, we're not considering that. Canada has a strong and independent justice system, and anyone who's considering weakening our values or weakening the independence of our justice system doesn't understand the importance of standing strong on our principles and our values.
Former Deputy Prime Minister John Manley and former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien both suggested exchanging the detainees. Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor were taken into Chinese custody 18 months ago. The arrests came just days after Canada arrested Meng on an extradition request by the United States. The 2 Michaels were formerly charged with espionage in China last week. And today, China told Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to stop making irresponsible remarks after he said Beijing was directly linking the cases against 2 detained Canadians with Meng Wanzhou's arrest in Vancouver.
根本不存在所谓任意拘留。
Beijing says its espionage cases against 2 Canadians are unrelated to the arrest of the Chinese top executive in December 2018. China also said Canada should correct its mistake and release Meng immediately. The Huawei CFO was arrested at Washington's request and is fighting an extradition case in BC. Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor were detained soon after her arrest and have since been charged with spying. Well, before we finish up the show tonight, just a reminder about the Liberal leadership debate that's happening live on Here and Now this Thursday. We want to know what questions you have for the 2 candidates who are running to be the next premier. There are so many important issues facing this province right now, so if you have a question you'd like us to put to the candidates, send us an email, hereandnow.nl@cbc.ca. Well, thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Have a great night.